Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zooming in not on the usual suspects, the emperors, the big rebels, but on someone much quieter. Lucius Annaeus Cornutus, known as the Common Stoic. Yeah, we talk a lot about figures like Cato the Younger, people whose moral stands were, well, almost impossibly dramatic. But what about everyone else? That's kind of the question from our sources today. We can't all be Catos. Does real courage need that huge stage, or can it look different? Maybe like just an ordinary person trying to navigate extraordinary, terrifying times.
That's exactly the pivot point here. When you look at someone like Cornutus living through, well, the political furnace of first century Rome, you really have to bring in this idea of moral luck.
Moral luck. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically the idea that the time and place you're born into really shapes the kind of chances you even get for heroism, or maybe more often the kind of moral compromises you face.
Ah, okay. So it's not that Cornutus wasn't brave, maybe, but that his circumstances didn't offer that big dramatic moment of defiance we associate with fame.
Precisely. His life, starting around 20 AD in Libya, was completely defined by the instability in Rome. First under Claudius, who was, calculating, and then under the, frankly, madness of Nero. Just surviving was something, thriving intellectually, even more so.
So our mission today is really to explore how this scholar, a Phoenician actually, navigated those incredibly high-stakes years, and what his resistance, which was often quite subtle, academic even, tells us about integrity when your options are limited.
It's fascinating. He was Phoenician, like Zeno, the founder.
Right.
But his impact, based on what we found, wasn't like a founder's, not revolutionary. It was more like the second Zeno, the one who kind of consolidated things through careful scholarship. A builder, not a fire starter.
The builder of ideas.
And, a really important detail is his name, Lucius Annaeus Cornutus. That middle name, Annaeus, that's the breadcrumb. That connects him right into the heart of Rome's intellectual and political elite.
Okay, let's unpack that. How does a guy from Libya end up tied so closely to Seneca's family? The Annae, they were powerful, but also frequently in dangerous territory themselves.
That name points right to them.
Huh?
The sources suggest he came to Rome sponsored by them, likely Seneca's brother, Mela, and that connection led to him tutoring Mela's son, the poet Lucan.
Wow, so he wasn't just in the circle, he was educating the next generation of it.
Exactly.
That sounds less like finding shelter and more like, I don't know, standing right next to a lightning rod. Seneca was banished by Claudius. Nero would later go after that whole group. Was Cornutus's intellectual value really worth that kind of risk?
It was incredibly risky, which just highlights how impressive his intellectual standing must have been. He was a genuine polymath. Our sources list expertise in orthography, spelling and writing systems, but also theology, grammar, rhetoric, linguistics, physics, ethics.
So not just smart, he was a force.
An imposing intellectual force, yeah.
And this reputation, this weight, it led to what I think is maybe the most surprising thing I found in the sources. This alphabet change under Emperor Claudius around 48 AD, Claudius actually took Cornutus's advice and added a new letter to the Roman alphabet.
The digamma. It looked a bit like an F, made a W sound. To think about the sheer intellectual clout needed to even suggest changing the alphabet.
It's huge.
This wasn't just some academic paper. This was messing with the fundamental tools of the state, of culture.
It kind of makes that idea of him keeping his head down seem a bit funny, doesn't it? If you're visibly changing the alphabet, you're not exactly hiding in the library stacks. Wasn't that inherently political, even dangerous?
It's absolutely political, even if framed as scholarship. It let Claudius look like an innovator. I improved Latin. And Cornutus, providing the justification, probably gained a bit of protection. For a time, anyway.
So there's this strange irony. Seneca gets kicked out by Claudius. But Cornutus, another Stoic connected to the family, is so useful he gets to literally alter Roman writing under the same emperor. It shows, I guess, that being useful could sometimes outweigh suspicion.
Exactly. Intellectual utility is a shield.
So he's surviving through his intellect. But it's easy to picture him as this, dry, bookish figure. Do we know anything about him as a person? Did he have friends, connections?
Well, we actually have this really touching description of his friendship with the poet Persius. It completely pushes back against that stereotype of the Stoic being cold or joyless.
Ah, yes. Persius wrote about spending long days and plucking the early evenings with Cornutus. Working, relaxing, but always at a restrained table.
I love that phrase.
Seriousness at a restrained table. It captures that Stoic idea of disciplined enjoyment, doesn't it? Finding pleasure within limits.
Totally.
And Persius stressed they were in harmony with a fixed bond and are guided by one star. It suggests this deep alignment, philosophically and personally, like the ideal Stoic friendship partners in pursuing virtue. But that friendship ended too soon. Persius died really young, in 62 AD, and Cornutus inherited not just money, but something incredibly valuable to him, Persius's library, including, remarkably, the full 700 volumes of Chrysippus's works.
700 volumes. And this is where we see Cornutus's character really shine through, faced with significant wealth and this unparalleled library.
He chose the books, he gave the money back to Persius's sisters, saying in the library it was more than enough.
Just think about that choice. In a society obsessed with wealth and status, he says, no, the knowledge is what matters. Those books weren't just books. They were the tools for the Stoic mission, helping people live better lives. His choice was a philosophical statement in itself.
That commitment to knowledge, though, would face a much harsher test pretty soon. As Nero's reign got darker and more paranoid, just keeping your head down wasn't really an option anymore.
No, the danger was escalating for everyone. And this is where that moral luck idea comes back in. Under Claudius, Cornutus was lucky his scholarship was valued. Under Nero, the rules changed. The political climate started demanding compromises, whether you were a scholar or not. Usefulness wasn't enough anymore.
And we see that compromise happen when Cornutus was editing Persius's poems after his death. There was apparently a line comparing Nero's ears to a donkey's. Not exactly subtle.
And Cornutus changed it. He edited the line to avoid giving offense. This is that quiet resistance, maybe even appeasement. It's a compromise someone like, say, the really hardcore Stoic Agrippinus would never have made. But Cornutus must have felt he had to, maybe to protect Persius's legacy or himself.
But did it work? I mean, compromising like that with a tyrant, does it ever really buy you safety in the long run?
Well, no, not really. It assumes the tyrant is rational, right? Nero just found something else to be upset about soon enough. Appeasement, Cornutus discovered, is usually just a temporary fix when you're dealing with someone that unstable. You can't navigate that kind of madness by just trying to be slightly less offensive.
Which leads to the final confrontation. And again, it's over literature. Nero, seeing himself as this great artist, apparently asked Cornutus for feedback on his grand plan, an epic history of Rome, in 400 volumes.
400 volumes. The sheer scale of the ego is, well, staggering. And Cornutus, the meticulous scholar, the guy who just inherited Chrysippus's 700 very serious volumes, had to respond.
And his response was fatal to his career anyway. He told Nero it was too long, just excessive.
Right. And when Nero pushed back, saying, well, what about Chrysippus? He wrote even more. Cornutus delivered the killer line.
The line that summed it all up. He said Stoics wrote to help the conduct of men's lives.
Exactly. The implication was deafening. Nero's epic wasn't helpful. It was just vanity. Useless. And that was the insult Nero couldn't stomach.
It's the ultimate intellectual mic drop, isn't it? Not violence, just a devastatingly accurate critique. The sources say Nero barely stopped himself from having him killed on the spot.
Yeah, he had to restrain himself. Instead, he chose banishment. Sent Cornutus away sometime between 66 and 68 AD, we don't even know where.
And while banishment is an execution, it must have sent shockwaves through Seneca's circle, right? Attacking Cornutus, this respected, quiet scholar.
Oh, absolutely. It would have been a massive red flag for Seneca, for Lucan, Cornutus's former student. It showed Nero wasn't making distinctions anymore. Philosophical disagreement was becoming treasonous.
So this seemingly small incident, Nero's egregiousness against a scholar, it actually helped fuel the growing opposition, like the Pisonian conspiracy involving Lucan and Thrasea.
It likely did. Cornutus himself just vanishes into obscurity, banished like Rutilius Rufus before him. But there's a strange twist of fate there. While Rome explodes into civil war after Nero's death, the year of 4 Emperor Cornutus is, well, somewhere else. Blissfully removed, perhaps.
Removed from the chaos.
He survived, not through grand defiance, but through that one sharp, truthful comment that Nero couldn't quite process immediately. He lived, while his student Lucan and his associate Seneca both died violently in Rome not long after.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway? Cornutus clearly wasn't a Cato. His resistance wasn't loud or heroic in that classic sense. It was quieter, academic.
But still significant. Every step influencing the alphabet, choosing books over money, that final critique of Nero's writing to find his own kind of moral commitment. He fought his battles on the ground available to him.
It really highlights the difference between maybe moral grandeur and moral impact. Cornutus proves you don't necessarily need the big stage or the famous ending to matter. You can make quiet contributions, shift something small like the alphabet, or just speak a necessary truth and still have real significance, even if history kind of forgets exactly where you ended up.
Which brings us to the question for you, listening today. We admire the Catos, the ones who choose death over compromise. But faced with similar pressures, similar constraints, which path would you take? The absolute, famous defiance? Or the quieter, measured contribution, the survival perhaps of a Cornutus?
Which path is actually more achievable, maybe even more relevant in the complexities of our own lives?
Something to think about until our next deep dive.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.